Welcome to the Are We Nearly There Yet podcast. I'm Sonia, wife to James and mum to 4 children ranging in age from 7 to 12. I'm also the families lead at Kerith Community Church. In each episode, I'm going to have a conversation with someone different relating to this journey we are on in parenting and family life. If you're looking for expert parenting advice, well, you've come to the wrong place. I do hope, though, that this will be a place to share, to find affirmation, a place that may challenge our thinking and open our eyes to other people's situations, ultimately helping us realise we're not alone in this journey of parenting. Perhaps you're just starting out, or perhaps your children are nearly adults. Whatever your situation, you are so welcome to come and join us in the conversation. This week I chatted to Pete about how his experiences as a child have impacted the parent he is today. I should warn you that we do touch on issues of loss, including suicide, so this may be triggering for some of you, and you may wish to listen when little ones are not within earshot. Come and listen into the conversation of Pete's journey. Welcome to this week's Are We Nearly There Yet podcast, and we have Pete Moon with us. Pete, hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Cool. Yeah, not too bad. It's nice and warm at the minute, so we're all enjoying that.
Yes, we are recording this on the hottest day of the year, so thank you for coming out of the sunshine to record this with me today.
No probs.
So, Pete, for those of us listening who don't know much about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family, both now and your family growing up?
No, of course, yeah. So I'm Pete. I'm married to Alex. We've got 2 girls, Maya and Alia. They're 13 and 11, and we've been in Bracknell now for about 15 years, which has gone very fast the last, I think as soon as you start having kids, it goes crazy fast, right? So I originally grew up in Crawley, which isn't that far away from here, kind of similar-ish to Bracknell in that it's a bit of an ugly new town built in the 70s kind of thing. Kind of concrete disaster kind of location, but yeah, so it's I was born in Crawley, and I lived there sort of first 50 years of my life, and mum and dad were married, and I had a brother, and when I was 7, my mum died. She actually took her life, and at one of the kind of the well-known sort of suicide spots in Beachy Head, and that was kind of really like after a couple of years of lots of challenges for her. Her mental health had kind of got progressively worse because of various things. I should have had a sister who would have been 2 years younger than me, and she died stillborn at full term. So I think my mum was due to give birth in really not a sort of not that long, and there was kind of like a gas explosion from our oven, which kind of threw her and my brother back. My brother kind of lost some of his hair was in flames, but unfortunately my mum came worse off in that they I think at that point the baby had died, so obviously that was a massive blow for her. Kind of thought about 5 years before she actually took her life, but then a couple of years after that she got cancer, and I mean obviously that's bad enough as it is, but she also had a medical accident at the hospital, in that I don't know whether it's something to do with how chemo's changed over the years, but they gave her some kind of chemo injection instead of some kind of drip, or I don't know 100% know, but basically they ended up burning her arm, and she basically had to have skin grafts on her arm, and it was like she used to struggle with she was in pain all the time, and she couldn't sleep at night because she was in so much pain, I think with a mixture of that and kind of her, I think it's kind of situational mental health kind of got worse. It was, I mean, although it seems like there maybe was a little bit of mental health issues in the family, because her mum really kind of struggled with sort of mental health as well. So there may be a bit of combination of that plus the past. But anyway, yeah, so she died when I was 7 based on a whole bunch of things. I think she had actually already tried to take her life once previously before that by taking an overdose, but that kind of didn't really work. So I think there was definitely some challenges in terms of family life. I just remember, I don't have loads of memories before the age of 7, but I think she was unwell for a good couple of years. So, you know, she didn't walk us to school or anything like that. I just remember my granny walking me to school quite a lot. And then for about the next 6 years after that, until the age of 13, it was just me, my dad and my brother. And just wondering whether there's anything to say about that period. Basically, I think my dad, he was kind of trying to work out how do I work and kind of look after my boys. So we had someone who used to come and cook for us and kind of do cleaning. And me and my brother, from the age of kind of secondary school age, we both went to boarding school. My dad remarried when I was 13. I could probably say a lot more about that, but I won't now. But I think it quickly became apparent that he hadn't made a brilliant marriage choice. Really from then, me and my brother were away from home quite a lot because of boarding school. So we'd only be back in the holidays really. And then we both went to university after that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to know or any other questions off the back of that in terms of kind of growing up and family life or anything.
Wow. Yeah, I knew some of that. I didn't know all of that, Pete. So thank you for sharing that.
That's cool. No worries.
Brother older than you, or?
So he's 5 years older.
5 years older.
Yeah. So he was 13 when Mum died. Yeah.
And are you guys close?
Yeah, we are pretty close. Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of family dynamics, I think kind of the closest relationship I have with closest family is probably my brother. And my dad, I think. I think it's always been a bit of a tricky one over the years in that, and I'm sure we'll come to this in a little bit, but I think just in the way that he buried himself in work and didn't really kind of deal with things too well. I've never had, I wouldn't say I've had a really massively close relationship with my dad. So me and my brother would write to each other loads because we didn't actually go to the same boarding school. This was one of the kind of crazy things about, I think, basically my dad, my brother got a really good scholarship to an all boys boarding school, and I think even if I had been able to get a scholarship or something, my dad wouldn't have been able to afford it because it was kind of still quite pricey for my brother. So I went somewhere else, which meant that I was on kind of although it was a partially paid boarding school, I didn't pay anything because at that point I think it was the 90s crash and my dad was in the building industry and he didn't have any money. So I think that was an interesting dynamic as well. And kind of going on to talk about parenting in a minute, I don't think that was anything that, my dad might have been between a rock and a hard place, but I, as a parent, I don't think I could ever send my kids to different schools, but, obviously people would do different things. But I think for me, I could have probably done with some of the support of my brother at some points, as you'll probably go on to hear and stuff. So, yeah.
So that's a massive lot of stuff to deal with in your childhood. Can you share a little bit more about those memories you have in those immediate months and years after your mum died and how that impacted?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, gosh, there's so much to say, but I think we did really well at burying our emotions, and whether that was just, I don't know, through how I was wired or whether it was literally just kind of following the model of my dad. I mean, I think I only really remember my dad crying once, and that was when he first told us that our mum had died, and we were just in our living room and he was just kind of hugging us and we were all crying. And to be honest, after that, it just felt like emotions kind of got just buried. Do
you remember much? Sorry, I interrupted your flow, but do you remember much before that point of your childhood, up until the age of 7? Do you have many memories? It's a difficult age to have memories from anyway.
Yeah, I mean, only a few, whether it was because it kind of got blotted out a bit because of I don't know, because of the trauma. I've got, I would say I don't have loads of memories. And I mean, some people sort of say they can remember memories back to being 3 or 4 or 5, but I mean, I've only got kind of a few vague memories before that. So I mean, I've got some memories about just the home we lived in, and sometimes some of the holidays or walks we went on as a family before Mum died. So there were some positive memories in there. Yeah, and we used to go skiing as a family. I think my dad got my mum into skiing, and so that was something we kind of did even at a really young age, around sort of 5 or 6. So I do have some some better memories in that way.
Yeah.
But like I say, I think my mum was ill for at least sort of from the age of sort of 5-ish onwards. I think that was a time when she wasn't around so much or just really struggling. Yeah.
And so back to again then those immediate months afterwards.
Yeah. So I think it was a combination of probably a whole bunch of things. Probably my dad just not really knowing what to do and being part of a generation of kind of stiff upper lip, and you don't express your emotions, especially as a bloke, in that kind of maybe from that post-war kind of era. So, and almost, I think some of the conversations I've had with my dad about emotions since then, it's almost seen as, especially from his kind of religious point of view, would be that, it's that's not what you do. You don't show your emotions, or you don't talk about them, but yeah, it was all kind of a bit mad. And it wasn't really a time where, today a lot of people would get counselling, or it's kind of very kind of, people are maybe more open to counselling now, or there's just more access to it. I didn't have anything like that. I don't think my dad had anything like that. But what happens when we bottle up emotions, right? It kind of, it comes out in different ways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it came out in various different ways. It came out through anxiety. It came out through anger. Yeah. So I think some of the memories that I do have that kind of, impacted my childhood. I just remember, I think this wasn't long after she died, and I was at primary school, and I think maybe my my kind of private space had been invaded in the classroom or something, and I just felt like really anxious and really angry, and whether someone was picking on me, I don't really remember the full background of it, but I just totally lost it, which was totally unlike me.
Yeah.
And
I can't imagine that of you.
Yeah, and I must have been only like maybe 8 or something, and I just grabbed a chair and I basically threw it at like one of my classmates, and it hit him basically just below the eye, and it cut him below the eye, and I was like, I kind of freaked myself out because he was like bleeding everywhere, and it was literally like probably an inch away from taking his eye out with like the chair leg, and I was just like shouting and crying, and so they just like I think that's probably the only time I've been sent to the headmaster's room and not been like told off, because I can remember just being taken away from the classroom, and I think obviously they knew all of what had happened, and so I didn't get in trouble, but it was just one of those things where I just thought, man, that's not, it's just totally not like me. But I think generally I was quite introverted and quite shy. Maybe that was something that kind of increased even more, because I think I had kind of quite a massive lack of self-confidence. But yeah, I think really coming from not talking about it, not really getting help. Even crazy things like I didn't even go to the funeral. I remember one of my memories was just being in a neighbour's house, and just remember looking out the window, and across the road there were lots of people in black suits, and that's just like my only memory of like the beginning of what potentially was people going to the funeral.
It wasn't your choice not to go. You weren't allowed to go.
As far as I know, yeah. Again, I just think in terms of parenting, I just think we need to show our kids the reality of life, don't we? And when sad things like that happen, I'd love to think that I'll be able to do it differently with my girls.
Yeah.
But I just think, I think I lacked closure because of that. But yeah, so I think as well, it probably didn't help for secondary school. Probably being introverted and shy and lacking confidence, because I was quite badly bullied at school as well. And I think, like I kind of said about my brother, I'd kind of maybe wish at some of those times that my brother was around, because I think you probably got a bit more of sibling protection, especially an older brother, going through some of that stuff.
Yeah,
I think in that way, yeah, that was quite tough too. But yeah, I think, to be honest, those emotions were buried for years, really, and I think that's probably something we'll probably come on to a bit later. But yeah, I don't think it really got dealt with at all for at least 20 years properly. Yeah.
That's such a lot to deal with at such a young age, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sometimes when I do talk about it with people, that was my normal. So in some ways, I don't really have anything to compare it to. It's kind of, but you do start to compare it when especially after getting married. It was like, oh, so that's how Alex does family stuff, and it's so radically different, or that's our experience of growing up. But that was my normal. So it was, I guess at the time I didn't really question it.
So we'll move on in a moment to thinking about you, Pete the dad, Pete the parent, and how all that stuff has impacted you in your adulthood and how you've approached your own parenting and your fatherhood of your girls. Let's give people a little bit of an insight into Pete now, in terms of your interests, your work. What kind of things do you do outside of the home at the moment?
Yeah, so when we first moved to Bracknell, I worked for Kerith for a couple of years as facilities manager and doing other couple of bits and pieces, and then I went self-employed for almost 10 years, running a property maintenance business, and then in the last 5 years we've been running a business from home. Basically created an e-commerce business, importing from India and selling online. So we run that me and Alex together, but we've got a team of people who work virtually and also from the UK. So we've got about a team of 8 now. So yeah, it's grown pretty quickly and enjoying that. It's a new challenge and learning something new every day. But then I'm someone who loves the outdoors. If I could be anywhere, I'd love to be in the mountains. Generally anywhere where I can either mountain bike or ski or snowboard would be my favourite places to be. But obviously that's a bit harder in Bracknell. So normally maybe it's a bit of a cycle around the lookout or in Swindley Forest. I haven't been able to go running recently because I managed to injure my ankle, which was that's another story.
Ouch. That sounds sore. You're quite an outdoorsy, outgoing, active person. You've got a full life now. You're a husband. You are a father. What age did you become a father?
Oh gosh, I'm rubbish with remembering the age of things. So Maya's 13, and so that would have been 20. A minute, what year are we in? She was born 2006. She? Yes, 2006, and so I would have been 20.
Mid-20s-ish.
Yeah, mid-20s.
I'm guessing your age.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you put me on the spot. You put me on the spot and trying to remember dates and stuff. So.
No, don't worry.
I'll let the listeners work that one out.
So, like, fast forward to that time from your childhood to then becoming a parent, like mid-20s, 20-something. So I'm interested in, like, how do you think that childhood loss directly experienced your experience of parenthood, like both when you first became a dad and then in the years since? How of influence, because it had a massive impact. As you say, you got married to Alex and thought, oh, this is how family works in her.
Yeah.
Families are different, and how that stuff impacted you, particularly as a parent.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I think probably to summarize it really shortly, but obviously I'll expand on it, is that most of the time I'm just like, I have no clue what I'm doing.
None of us do. Don't worry about that.
I guess that is true. But I mean, I guess I feel like maybe slightly behind the curve of other people in that sometimes I just feel like I haven't had maybe like a good model of what it looks like to be. I think, if I'm really honest, sometimes when I see other dads my age and I see how they interact with their mums and dads now who are kind of older or whatever, and I sort of think there's like a little bit of jealousy inside me. It's like, oh, I wish I'd had that kind of like close kind of model of, and I know not everyone's got it perfect, and there isn't like, everyone's got their problems and their challenges, but I just think, gosh, sometimes I think I just want to do things differently, or I think I can be prone to maybe look at the negatives more than some of the positives, because I don't want to be all negative about some of the things my dad did, but there were lots of positive things he did do. We were really blessed in that most years he took me and my brother skiing, which was amazing. In between times he was very much kind of like a bit of a workaholic, and so I think for me, not having a mum around and not having an amazing model to follow as a father, I just felt like, I think one of the biggest challenges for me was, I mean, some people have, I think this has definitely changed over the years, but I think in early years of marriage and even early years at Kerith, sometimes good friends would comment about how I could be emotionally cold, but it was true, because I didn't grow up really with anyone. My dad, I never really remember him hugging me, and that wasn't really a close relationship. So I think in terms of how kind of my childhood influences my kind of, or influenced my parenting then and now, is I feel like I've had to relearn really basic things. Like, so Alex comes from the totally opposite, in that her family is totally like really they get all their emotions out on the table. They're really good at hugging. They're just like, they're just really good at loving each other in that kind of way. And I've almost had to like learn how to hug in cold blood, if that makes sense. It's just like, it just doesn't come naturally to me at all. It's like, it's just, I mean, even Alex has said of my dad, it's a bit like hugging a plank. You don't get anything back.
I've never hugged a plank. I'll have to try hugging a plank. See what that's like.
But it's definitely something where I just feel like I've grown in, for sure. Like, I mean, I really, for me now, it's something that I'm a lot more conscious of. I want to hug my girls, and I want to hug Alex, and I know that that's what they need and that's what they want. It's kind of the whole love languages thing, that it's totally not my love language. But normally you marry someone or you've got kids who, like, they've got opposite love languages, right? So Alex is very much like this physical affection. So for me, I've had, as a husband, had to like relearn all that as well. But I mean, there's other things as well. Like, I just feel like and I'm sure you'll probably say the same, but I've just got so much wrong over the years. And I think a lot of that can come down to and still do. I still feel I make the same mistakes over and over, but I can be like a real control freak. And I think having done some counselling and stuff like that, I think I know where that comes from, because my experience as a child was that everything was kind of chaotic and out of control. That's what it felt like. I think after Mum died, is that it just felt like total chaos and total loss. And so for me, my way of coping was wanting things not to be chaotic, and so I wanted to be in control. And even just simple things, I wanted my bedroom to be all like tidy and like, all organized. And so I'm kind of a very organized person, and I don't like things being disorganized. And so I can be and how that looks like in terms of parenting is not great sometimes, because I want everything to be sorted. I want everything to be in its place. And, as kids, like, stuff just gets left everywhere, and it's all very messy. And so I've had to learn, actually, in the not so good times, that actually I have to kind of surrender that, and kind of, I have to be not so rigid or not so firm. Sometimes I think in the past I've been quite harsh with my girls, and that's been a bit ugly in terms of parenting. And I haven't liked that about myself, but I think that kind of rears its head out of that kind of lack of feeling out of control, and wanting things to be right and wanting them to behave, and that ends up looking a bit like a kind of a not very nice kind of headmaster whacking his stick on the table and saying you've got to do what I tell you, kind of thing. But that's just not really loving parenting, really, is it? So I think that's been, for me, that's been a real kind of journey of learning, that realizing that actually I can't be in control of everything, and I can't make everyone do what I want them to do, and that actually that's not how it should be anyway.
And in your case, it's relearning, isn't it? It's not even it's deconstructing everything, because we learn from the moment we're born. We're learning from around. We're learning. We're picking up signals. We're seeing what's modelled. We're just always learning, children from really, really young. And so for you, it's a relearning of how to do things. You mentioned you'd had counselling, and I've heard that a lot about people with early trauma, or even adult trauma, that lack of control over that situation that they're experiencing, to turn to being controlling over what you can control, is a really normal coping mechanism.
Yeah, I think so.
You mentioned counselling, though. When did you feel did you access that? Was that kind of something that you accessed proactively?
Yeah, so that was definitely more as an adult. I mean, like I say, I think I didn't get any help as a child in that way. So for me, it was really like properly about 10 years or so ago. So it was a good kind of 4 or 5, 6 years into marriage, where I think a bit like I said before, when you try and put bottle on emotions, or if you haven't dealt with stuff in your past in that way, it just kind of comes out in different ways. And for me, it was coming out still in anxiety and also mental health stuff like depression, and that was affecting our marriage. So initially I think initially it was kind of sparked by us doing some marriage counselling together, because we didn't have a terrible marriage, but actually there were certain things that were really sparking stuff, which really was my issues to do with me. But I think having worked through some of those things to kind of maybe go from good to better marriage, I actually realised that I needed to do some one-to-one stuff. So I did some one-to-one stuff, which really ended up turning into bereavement counselling, and realising that actually there was quite a lot of things I'd never really properly processed in terms of bereavement and grief. And so if I'm honest, I felt a bit silly, because it was just like, I was like, really? Like, this is like 26 years later, after when I think it was about, must have been early 30s, and it was good like 25 years after Mum had died. And I think off the back of doing some counselling, or even whilst I was still doing counselling, I went to do the bereavement journey at HDB in London, because they were kind of one of the few places that I knew of, like, that were kind of running a kind of like a bereavement course that was linked to church and had, like, I guess kind of Christian input into how you deal with grief. And I remember going to the first night of that, and before I went in, I was just thinking, oh, I shouldn't be here. What am I doing? I feel stupid. Like, no one else is in the room. Everyone in the room is going to think I'm a weirdo. But it was just like such a huge sense of relief after going to the first night of that, because I was just in a room of other people who were in like a multitude of different situations of grief. And some people actually who hadn't addressed grief for even 50 years. And I was like, wow, I thought I'd left it a long time. And I just thought, wow, it's never too late to process grief. It's never too late to process kind of emotions that, you've just stuffed down for years. Yeah, so for me, I think there was some real healing in that. Definitely like a lot of healing in terms of marriage counselling, bereavement counselling, and I think as well in terms of mental health stuff over probably the last 10 years as well. I've tried different medications for that. To be honest, I never had it. It was a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I thought I really need to try this, but I kind of, first time I tried it, it didn't really work. Nothing really seemed to happen. Second time I tried it, I had like a really negative reaction to it in terms of, I just had some bad side effects. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't want to be going down this route. And then amazingly, like about 3 or 4 years ago, I tried a new SSRI called citalopram, and that just made a world of difference. And I think, if I'm honest, I really think that potentially I've been one of those people, maybe even since I was a child, who's just missed some kind of chemical in my body, because I literally felt like a lot of the anxiety and depression has lifted in a way that I've never experienced before. And I shared a bit about this in a meeting when Simon interviewed me at Kerith a few months back now, and it literally felt like I'd been healed, but healed through doctors and healed through amazing people who make amazing medication.
Yeah.
And I'm still taking that now, and it's just been like clouds have lifted, and that's really helped me with regards to coming out the back of all that kind of grief, dealing with grief and counselling and stuff. So
is there anything else that's helped you manage your grief, like both as an adult now, but can you think of anything back?
I mean, not really not really loads before that. I mean, because as a child, I think, like I said, it kind of all got buried. And I think the way that I actually managed it was a bit like I talked before. I think it was just me trying to be in control as much as I could, which wasn't always the best way to manage grief, really. But yeah, I mean, so since I went to that course at Holy Trinity Brompton, where they ran the bereavement journey, I think one thing that's continued to help me is helping others. So I really felt like God was telling me to run the bereavement journey at Kerith. So we started that about 9 years ago now, and we've been running it every year since, sometimes twice a year. And there's also an amazing opportunity coming up now that they're saying HTB are wanting as many churches in the UK to run it online because of the whole COVID situation. They're expecting literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people to be accessing these courses. So we're looking at running one maybe over August. And I just think, wow, what an opportunity to help others. Because I think every time I watch those videos, there's like, it's just a 6-week course. There's always something in there that just reminds me or speaks to me, even though I've heard them like over 10 times each, these DVDs or whatever. I just think actually that continues to help me, because it's I think grief is one of those things. It is a journey, and it always stays with you. It's never 100% gone away. I think sometimes when we talk to people on the course, they're like, oh, when does grief end? And actually it doesn't really. It kind of, I think we grow and we change, but it's something that will always live with us. But yeah, we can be changed, and we can kind of grow through that, which is what I find has really helped me as well, is just seeing others helped through it, which has been amazing, really. So so continuing to talk, helping others, accessing the right medical treatments for yourself, it's all helped. And I think for many people there's a reluctance to do some of those things, maybe more so with men, dare I say, sometimes. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I probably didn't mention that, but I mean, I think a couple of different ways. I think in terms of counselling, it did probably take Alex to kick my butt to kind of go, we need to do this. And I was probably reluctant, but also with the medication thing, she was also the one who was really pushing me to go and see the doctor. Just because I think I felt like, I just didn't want to go on my own, maybe. So I think the first time we properly went on our own, she came with me, and that just felt weird because I just broke down in tears in the doctors, and it was just like, just having that support. I think as a bloke, you don't always recognise that you've got a problem or actually want to do anything about it. So it did take some pushing for me to actually do some of those things, but I'm glad she pushed, because it really helped.
And I'm just interested to know, what age did you become a Christian, and how your faith has weaved through all of this? A bit with this, but
so I mean, I went on kind of various kind of kids camps when I was younger. So my mum and dad were both Christians, and we went to a CV church in Crawley. But I think for me, like, I think I definitely did make a commitment at a young age, around the age of sort of 6 or 7. But that didn't really kind of pan out into actually really following Jesus in my at school or in my teens. And but I really started searching at the end of sixth form and into my gap year. So around around the age of 18 and 19, I really started to read some books. I remember my brother had a book, which is basically the Alpha course in a book called Questions of Life that I took with me traveling. So essentially I basically did the Alpha course on my own with the book. I would have gone and done an Alpha course probably if someone had invited me, or if I was, but I was working abroad at the time. So I don't know if there were many places to do that, but where I was working on weekends, so I couldn't even go to church, but I was really searching. And for me, the combination of reading Questions of Life and starting to read a little bit of the Bible, I just remember, I think the big turning point for me was just one day sort of sitting there on my own and just going, God, if you're real, you've got to show me, because I hadn't had a great experience of Christianity at secondary school, because it was all very religious, and I just felt really put off by it. I just thought it was all irrelevant and dull and boring. And I'd kind of been forced to go to chapel twice a week for 7 years. It just kind of had put me off. But yeah, I felt really empty. I felt like something was missing, and really from that point of praying that prayer onwards, I just began to see God really answer that in a multitude of different ways. And so it was a real journey for me. But I think after praying that prayer when I was 19, I went to work in America, and for me, I was working on a kids camp run by the Salvation Army, and it was the first time I think I'd really properly met other Christians who had a really vibrant faith and were really living for God and making a difference in kids' lives. And I just thought, wow, I want what they've got. And so for me, that was really the time when I really kind of decided I wanted to really commit my life to Jesus. And so from then on, it was didn't get everything right, because I went to university after that, made loads of mistakes, but I think that's where God really grew my faith. And
and he's never left you through all of this.
And if I'm really honest, actually, I think I had a lot of big questions coming out at the end of school about life, and for me, death was a real thing. Seeing my mum die, I think was left a big question in my mind about what happens when you die. And I think for me, that was a real turning point for me in my mind, and thinking, actually, what happens when I die, and so and that's been a massive comfort for me since, that even though tragically my mum took her life, actually I believe that God's a gracious God, and she loved Jesus, and that one day I'll see her again. So that's been a massive comfort to me as well, in my faith.
That's so good to hear. Pete, you've been the first dad on the podcast. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
A groundbreaker.
Hopefully not the last.
No, hopefully not the last. Definitely not the last. So we're coming to the end of our conversation, but I just want to thank you for being so open. And I'm sure some of the things you've shared will really encourage people, whether it's encouraging them to seek help for past trauma, past issues, just opening our eyes to your experience and other people's experience. And so I'm so grateful that you made yourself vulnerable to come and talk about this.
Thanks for asking.
One last question before we end. This podcast is called Are We Nearly There Yet? And I'm sure you can remember when your girls were young, they probably asked you that on more than one occasion on a car journey. Are we nearly there yet, Dad? And when we go on a journey, depending where we're going, we take stuff with us, pack our bag for that journey, pack our suitcase, pack something in the glove compartment in the car. We're the ones on the journey as a parent. What essential items, when you're thinking about you starting out as a parent, what essential items would you pack for your parenting journey?
Yeah, good question. Quite a few different things. Crash helmet, maybe. Actually, saying that, my girls would really love rough play, so actually a crash helmet and body armor would be quite helpful sometimes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things. One thing that I found really cool, not in the last couple of years, was on the YouVersion Bible app. There's a really short plan, 7-day devotional plan by a couple called Mark and Jan Foreman, and they're the parents of the brothers who lead a band called Switchfoot in America.
Okay.
And that thing's called that devotional is called Never Say No: Raising Big Picture Kids. They basically as parents brought their boys up to just be really creative and just do loads of cool stuff. And they basically and it can kind of sound a bit weird saying never say no, because that you could sort of think, oh, if you never say no, then our kids will be out of control. But I think it was along the lines of, when your kids ask you to do some stuff and you're like, oh no, I'll later kind of thing, I'll do it later, but then later never comes. And so for me, that's really helped me to kind of stop and go, okay, what's more important in this moment right now? And so it has helped me sometimes just to stop or get off my phone or just put it down and or just stop what I'm doing and just do that thing with them. And if it's one of those things which maybe is a bigger thing, actually going, okay, it's yes, but like a not yet. And so I think for some of those things might look like, you know, just simple stuff. Like, I mean, I don't always really remember my dad like taking me to the cinema or watching a film. And so for stuff like that, it's, you know, if it's like, let's go to the cinema, let's watch a film, it's like, yes, let's do that, you know. Or even just maybe bigger ones, like I've always tried to do kind of like daddy-daughter dates, you know, putting things in the diary where it can be as simple as like booking it in and going for a coffee, or, you know, at the moment in terms of lockdown, it was just like recently going and grabbing some stuff from M&S in town, like a little bit of lunch, and just sitting on the steps in town centre and just having a little chat, you know, that kind of thing. And
that's so good.
But to bigger ones, you know, just you know, last year, every year I try and do like one big thing with one of them. So last year, me and Maya, with a couple of other dads and kids, we walked up Ben Nevis and taken them both like wild camping, separately, like up in the Welsh mountains, yeah, things like that, which I just think it's good to
creating memories, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And experiences. It's just
yeah,
so
definitely
important.
Yeah, but just sort of like, I think like I say, it's not thinking, oh, I've got to do those big things all the time. They can just be really small, simple things.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
it might be them tugging a leg and just saying, come play Lego with me, you know, when they were like younger. And the temptation would be like, oh, I've just got to finish this email, or I've just got to do that thing, and then never actually doing it. Because just time goes so fast, doesn't it? I think that's one thing for me as a parent, kind of looking back, that, you know, what would I do differently? I think it would just be getting stuck in as much as possible at any given moment, because like, you know, the last, you know, 10 to, you know, 11 to 13 years that they are now has just flown, you know. And
wake up tomorrow morning and they'll be 25, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
exactly. And I think yeah, well, exactly, yeah. And I think for me and Alex as well, is that we've invest kind of financially in them, in terms of like where we might have been tempted to go for some luxurious holiday for us for the summer. We've said, okay, let's actually spend less on maybe like a week in Devon, and let's just go with like going to New Wine or Wildfires as a family, and invest in that, because that's investing in them. It's kind of putting our money into their like you know, spiritually investing in them, but kind of putting our money where our mouth is, kind of thing, and going,
so
you know, we just thought, let's run with it, because I think the first or second year we went to New Wine, they were like, yeah, we really want to go back next year. And although it may not have always been the thing we wanted to do, actually as a family, I think it was just an amazing investment, and to keep doing that. And now we've got Wildfires. We've been, you know, we went to that last year and they loved it, and there's just great in so many different ways doing that kind of thing as a family.
We've found the same this year with this whole lockdown, and obviously loads of stuff was cancelled, wasn't it? We were looking at the start of this year at one side of the family we were going to Centre Parks, the other side of the family we were going to Mallorca, and as of 6 with our church family we were going to Wildfires. Wildfires was the one that my children cried about not going to. Not that they didn't want to do those other things, they obviously really did, but it's so important and valuable those times.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, you know, they'll be 25 before you know it, and I just think I'd rather have kind of invested that time with them then, and thinking, well, I can, if I want to, I'll go on some nice holidays when they've left the home, you know.
Yeah, that that's so good.
Yeah. So I mean, there's probably a bunch of other things. I mean, we've got a whole load of, I just feel like I've bought loads of parenting books over the years. I probably haven't even read them all. But like, especially like I said at the beginning, I just feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I was just like, I'm someone who can, like, you know, just suck up a whole load of learning from different books. So I feel like we've gathered lots of different, the way, you know, every family kind of culturally parents in their different way, don't they, from from their experiences of upbringing. So I think we've kind of gathered lots of different things that we've done over the years in different ways to try and do parenting better. But then as well, praying, I think for me, like, we both kind of read Power of a Praying Parent every once in a while, and just remembering that actually praying for our kids is just so important. And I think even sometimes recently, just praying for our youngest, for with regards to things like to do with school, and also to do with even just spending time with God on our own together, or own separately. I think Ali has been quite resistant to reading the Bible like at all, really, like over the last few years. But actually, even just praying about that, you know, we've just seen recently, she's just totally done like a 180, and we've we've got her like a journaling Bible, and she's been doing it herself. She's been highlighting it, and it was just like, wow, where did that come from? And it was just like, and I just think, yeah, we prayed, we talked to God about it, and she's taken to doing that herself and together, which I just think, I really feel like if it wasn't for praying, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. But yeah,
just that intentionality around experiences, that raising big picture kids, creating space and investing financially in their spiritual experiences and praying.
Definitely.
They are all great things to pack in your luggage. So
for sure.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to me, Pete.
You're welcome.
As I said, you've been the first dad, first of many on the podcast. So we're so grateful for you, and thank you. And it's time now for you to go back and enjoy the sunshine, I reckon.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, Pete. Take care.
Right. Bye for now. Bye.
Well, thank you again to Pete for coming on and sharing his experience with us. He mentioned a few things that I thought would be good to highlight as resources. There's a book, The 5 Love Languages for Children. That's by Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell. There's another book he mentioned, Never Say No, Raising Big Picture Kids. That's by Jan and Mark Foreman. He also mentioned the Bereavement Journey course that comes out of a church called Holy Trinity Brompton, htb.org. You can find out information about that course on there. And if you have children in your family who've experienced grief, there's Child Bereavement UK charity, Winston's Wish charity. Please tap into those charities with resources for children, specifically around their grief journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening in to Are We Nearly There Yet? Come back next week to join us for another conversation on our parenting journey.